let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe when we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell. We back the badge, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Gander the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
All right, everybody, welcome in. Thank you for being here for Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Welcome to the episode. It's a Friday. It's the 19th of June. Some people like to call it Juneteenth. Those people are stupid. That's not a word. There's June, and then there's a whole bunch of teens, 13, 14. Yeah, you get it. It's June 19th. But for us, it's a different kind of a show today. The episode's going to feature a couple of big long-form interviews because of a couple of other obligations. And one of them is going to feature Kelley Williams-Bolar, which you'll hear in just a moment. Kelley is a school choice advocate because she is a school choice mom who about 15 years ago found herself in some trouble with the law because she tried to put her kids in a better school district without being able to afford to live there. It became a very hot, controversial topic, and it's one that she's going to tell. She's going to talk about it on blah, blah, blah. What are we talking about? On Monday, the 22nd. In Columbus at our very, very, very big America 250 event. So Kelley Williams-Bolar is going to tell her story to us exclusively here in a moment. And after that, you're going to want to be here for Ken Hammontree too. Ken Hammontree is an historian. He's the one who played George Washington. You'll see some pictures and things like that. He played George Washington for a living history reenactment, if you will, or at least a narrative of the crossing of the Delaware. It was such a monumental point in the Revolutionary War as this country gained its independence. So I've got great interviews today, one with Kelley Williams-Bolar, one with Ken Hammontree. I think you're going to enjoy them. Check in on the chat, obviously. Keep the conversation going there. I'll try to get into it a little bit as well. And don't forget, hit the thumbs up. That's the like button. Hit the bell notification. Subscribe to the channel. Join us in the locals community if you could. Hit that join button there if you're watching on Rumble. But wherever it is, if you're watching on Rumble or X or on YouTube or whatever, thank you for watching today. Give us some engagement. Give us a little bit of activity in the comment section as well. It will help us go a lot further and get us to where we want to be. So thanks, everybody. And now enjoy the show. All right, everybody. This is a big one. I've been telling you for some time now about what's happening on Monday, the 22nd. It's a great event. I'm very excited to be one of the key speakers in this event. It is one small step, a celebration of America 250, but also a celebration of all of the heroes who made Ohio and America great with one small step historically, and what we can do to take one small step toward the next 250. And that's what this is about. Well, one of my fellow speakers on the stage at this event is going to be Kelley Williams-Bolar, whose name you may be familiar with from a news story from long ago, but you might not remember what it was all about. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of this just to set up our conversation. In 2011, Kelley Williams-Bolar was an Akron area mother. I'll say Akron area. It was in Akron, but she was convicted of a crime after enrolling her daughters not in the Akron schools, but in the neighboring Copley-Fairlawn School District using her dad's address. All right. Prosecutors said the girls didn't actually live there, so this was a crime. School officials hired a private investigator, gathered evidence, and the case resulted in felony convictions for falsifying records and related charges. She ultimately ended up serving 10 days in jail and was placed on probation. And that case exploded nationally at that time because a lot of people viewed the punishment as extraordinarily harsh compared to the offense. Then Governor John Kasich, for whom I don't have a whole lot of love, but he granted clemency to her and reduced the felony convictions to misdemeanors. To this day, some people argued she broke the law. She's a criminal. That's the way it is. That's what should have happened. Others say not so much, not so fast, because what she was trying to do is take advantage of an opportunity to give her kids a better education and a better chance, especially considering they spent a significant part of their time at their father's address in the Copley-Fairlawn district. So for background purposes, we're going to go back in the Wayback Machine here now to 2015 and this ABC News report of the case with Kelley Williams-Bolar. This was Robin Roberts back in 2011. Watch.
Wants to give their child the best education possible. One Ohio mom is currently sitting in jail, accused of illegally trying to get her daughters into a better school district. Should she be serving time, or was she justified? Our Andrew Canning is here with more on this mother's crime and her punishment here. This is going to really light up our message board.
Yeah, it is a big debate right now, Robin. Kelley Williams-Bolar is serving a 10-day sentence. She falsified residency records, and prosecutors say a private investigator even caught her red-handed on video living in the wrong district. Bolar says all she wanted to do was help her daughters escape their crime-ridden Akron neighborhood.
It's overwhelming. I'm exhausted. I did this for them. So there it is.
Kelley Williams-Bolar's decision to try to give her daughters a better life has now landed her behind bars. It started 4 years ago when Bolar, who lives in a poorer section of Akron, Ohio, sent her daughters to a highly ranked school in a neighboring district. The problem is, it wasn't her district, it was her father's, and her children weren't eligible to go there. She says she did it to keep them safe and that she lived part-time with her dad.
When my home got broken into, I felt it was my duty to do something else.
But school officials said she was cheating, getting a quality education for her daughters without paying the right taxes to fund it.
Those dollars need to stay home with our students.
The school system says Bolar lied about her address, falsified records, and when confronted, had her father file false court papers to game the system. The district even hired a private investigator to follow her. She was ordered to pay $30,000 in back tuition, but refused and was indicted.
Ask yourself, why would you believe a word she told you understand?
Bolar claims she was singled out.
This is not a murder trial. It's not.
I felt that some punishment or deterrent was needed for other individuals who might think to defraud the various school systems.
My girls need me. I've never, ever went a day without seeing them off. Never.
The case has now divided a city.
Why they chose this particular young lady, this particular girl, and not anyone else.
And left many wondering how far a mother should go to give her children a better life.
I don't think they wanted money. I think they wanted me to be an example.
100 other families were investigated at the same time as Bolar. 3 agreed to stay and pay tuition. The others either proved they were residents of the district or admitted guilt. Only Bolar fought the school district.
And she wants to be a
All right, so she fought the school district. That's exactly what she did do. I want to bring it back up here now, or actually, we'll bring Kelley in a second here. But she fought to keep her kids in the better district because she knew it was best for her kids. Now, all of this was long before the backpack bill. All of this was long before what has become a national movement for school choice, to give parents an opportunity to put their kids in a better place so they are not subjected to terrible, school atmospheres, environments, dangerous places, underfunded schools, and so on and so forth. To the point where their future is going to be limited because of that. School choice is now a big national movement, and all she did was, as far as I can tell, get ahead of the curve. But now she is going to be joining us on the stage in Columbus, speaking about her experiences, again, this coming Monday, the 22nd, and Kelley Williams-Bolar does join us right now, right here on Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Kelley, thank you for coming on. How are you today?
Hi, I am well, and thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here. It's quite a story. It's hard to believe it's been 15 years. How does that feel to you?
I feel like it was yesterday.
How many times have you seen that clip that I just played back for people who maybe don't recall your situation? How many times have you watched that?
Oh, a lot. I don't
What
know
do you,
how
what
many
do you
times.
think? What do you think when you look back at 15 years younger Kelley Williams-Bolar in the middle of that? Now that you have, some distance and some time, and your kids have grown and done what they're going to do. When you look back at that stuff now, what do you think?
I was in the middle of a storm, and I didn't know what. Every day I prayed. I didn't know what I was being used for, because I know that I did not I know that I was not an inventor of district jumping, what they call district jumping. I know I did not invent it. I know that had been a thing way before I even knew anything about it. So in itself, I knew that I went through a lot. Okay. I went through a deep depression behind that. But I also knew that I was either being used as a vein to help grandparents, guardians, parents, mom, dads, people that need help with their children. I knew that it had to be something, because I've always been a law-abiding citizen, always. And when that happened, I was it really truly turned my life upside down. Yeah.
Take us back to 2011. How old were your kids at the time when all this happened?
2011. Well, by that point, my oldest daughter was going to high school. She had to be like a freshman, sophomore. My
Okay.
youngest one was middle. She was not quite going to middle school. She was like in fifth, sixth grade, somewhere in there when all of this
roughly 14, 15 going into high school, and fifth, sixth grade, probably about 10, 11, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay.
Yes.
So that was the first year, 2011, that you started putting them in the Copley Fairlawn schools, correct?
No, actually it
Nope.
happened. It happened prior. See, people don't know
Okay.
this.
Give me the time.
So what happened was, it was in 2008. Okay. And
Okay.
I removed my kids. My kids had been back in the district. And 18 months later, they decided to do an indictment on me. We were gone a long time.
Okay.
And so that's why I think a lot of teachers, a lot of people, they were confused, because they're like, well, they've been here for like 2 years. Why are they getting indictment? And so so that's it. Actually started in 2008.
Okay. So that helps a little bit. So they were even younger. The reason I ask is I wanted to know, how long were they in the Akron schools when you realized I cannot keep them in Akron schools? What were the Akron schools like, and your experiences with your kids at that time?
So they both were going to a school, Can I say the school's name? No.
Sure. I mean, this is all part of the record now. You went through a court trial and
Yeah,
everything that's been in the news.
yeah.
You're, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, I can't imagine why
It's
you couldn't. So go
it
ahead.
is yes, 15 years. Okay, so
Yeah.
they were going to a school called Schumacher, and they were in, my little one was in third grade going to fourth, and my oldest one was going to middle school. And so my father was telling me, see, so the Good Morning America, she didn't have everything, all the details, okay, because my middle schooler, my oldest one, she was going to middle school. My youngest one was going to third and fourth grade. So well, third grade. And my dad kept telling me I had just gotten a divorce. I was in college for education, and I worked in education. I was like a payroll sub with APS, with Akron Public Schools. And so my dad kept telling me, he was like, just bring him out here. It's going to be easier for you because I don't know, it was just having issues with my ex-husband. He just wasn't involved like he should have been. He basically wanted to divorce the kids as he and I had gotten a divorce. Long story. So I just said, okay. So one day I went out to Copley. I went to the first school I went to was the elementary school. And I mean, I walked through the doors, and there was a gentleman there. He was the principal. I can't remember his name. I tell you, I believe he was a wonderful man. He said, would you like to have a tour? And I was like, absolutely, thanks. And I'll tell you what, here I am walking around this building. This building was state of the art. Everything was new and innovative. And I'm like, man, whoa, this is amazing. Why are all the schools like this? Why, I'm still fairly young at the time, and I'm like, why are all the schools like this? I didn't understand all of the funding and money and all of those things. I just knew that I felt like all schools should have this type of resources. So he took me around, showed me the lab. They had a computer lab room. The entire room was, if I can remember, it had like 40 tables, and they all had computers on the tables. And I was like, this is amazing. Oh my goodness. He took me outside. They had, I want to say, I don't know how much land, but they had a lot of land for their what's the I can't remember the name of it, but it's just to grow plants and different things. And I'm thinking, in our school, we have a styrofoam cup that you put dirt in and seed in, and you put it in the window, and you hope the sun and water it, and hopefully you get a plant out of it. So all the resources that they were showing me at the time was amazing. And I'm like, this place is, my dad had been telling me to go out there, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. We can, I'll just stick it out. I'm almost finished with school, and whatever. And I just fell in love with all the things that they had to offer our
Okay.
kids, and academically they were high. They were one of the best schools in the state. So
Outside of academics, Kelley, tell me about your kids' life in Akron and at the schools. And what I mean by that is Akron is a much higher crime rate. It is a much higher discipline problem rate at the schools there. A lot of the parents don't care, quite frankly, what their kids are doing. You did. That's one of the reasons why you don't want your kids being, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that one of the reasons why? Is it just about the academics and the garden and and the resources and the computer labs, or is it more than that?
absolutely not. It's not just about that. When we talk about what happened in Akron Public Schools, my oldest daughter was being bullied. She had other kids that were just being nasty and mean to her. They couldn't function in classes. And if you can't function because someone's being mean to you, then you're not gonna be able to be your best. You're not gonna be able to give all that you have, because you got kids tormenting you on the side. And so I just couldn't. That was another reason, was because of my oldest daughter. It was always a situation. And my kids are timid. Like, they never had a behavioral issue. Never. They just two little girls, timid, quiet, and just wanting to be left alone and go to school.
So you've got some young timid girls. It's a good way to describe them, I guess. And are they feeling intimidated? Are they coming home and saying, "Mom, somebody's pushing me. Mom, somebody's the bullying you talk about here." And so did you try to resolve that at the Akron level first? Did you go to the school? Did
Yes.
you talk to teachers, principals, or somebody to say, "Hey, my daughters can't do their best when they're afraid all the time"? Did you try to resolve it there before saying, "Deuces, I'm running to another district"?
Oh no, yeah, definitely. I tried to connect with the teachers because I thought I was going through like a chain of command where you talk to the teachers first and then you try to resolve it. Many times, and I'm saying many times, it's like I don't know if the teachers are frustrated. I don't know if they were over exhausted, overstimulated. I don't know if there's just too many students for them and they just couldn't handle it or whatever, because it was like it went in one ear and totally out the other ear. And it's like, so something traumatic would have to happen for you to understand me having this meeting with you, me telling you my daughter is having issues in this classroom or with this particular child, or why can't they be separated? Why can't they be, why do they have to sit right beside each other or go to the bathroom at the exact same time? Or why, what about recess? Can they have, you just try to make it where my daughter didn't feel so I don't want to go to school the next day. That's not what I want my children's experience to be in school. I wanted them to have a great experience. Not to say my experience was great coming up, because I had problems too, but I think most people, you will have experiences that may not be the best, because that's a part of um connecting with, or social skills, right? It's a part of being sociable. But it was still difficult. A lot of times they just didn't listen.
What about other parents? Did you have other friends who, of kids in your daughter's classes and so forth? And did any of them talk about, "Man, I wish we could get them out of here"? Did you have any consultation? Did anybody else try to do what you were doing specifically? Or maybe was your situation unique because your father lived in that other more affluent, safer
Well,
district? So you had an option and other people did not.
well, I'll tell you what, I really didn't know. I'm not a real sociable person, so it wasn't like I was connecting with other people and just talking to people all the time. I pretty much kept to myself, and so I didn't really have anyone to talk to. And so it's interesting you mentioned that, until my kids got to Copley. Then there's like this underground railroad type of thing where there's a lot of parents that live in Akron that take their kids to Copley, but they don't know it. See, so,
To
but
this
price
day, to this day, you think that's still happening?
to this day,
Really?
to this
So
day.
so has anybody else been charged with felonies for doing it?
No, no. And when it happened to me, it was quite a few parents that were still out there. And I would never go and say, just because I'm in trouble, just because I'm knee deep in this, I would never go and tell. I just did what I had to do, but I would never go and tell on them. That was
Right.
just what happened to them. That was their business. That was what they were doing.
Okay. So let's advance this a little bit. So you get your kids, and how long were they in Copley Fairlawn schools before the prosecution, the charges were brought?
So they were there for 2 years,
2 years.
and then they were back in Akron for almost 2 years. Okay, so but they were in Copley district for 2 years.
So did they end up graduating from Akron schools?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Well, no, my oldest one did, and my youngest one went to. I moved down in Merriman Valley, and then she went to a school called Woolridge, and that's a different district.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you literally moved, because that's what a lot of people said at the time. And I remember this to a degree. I'm not going to pretend and lie here, but I remember, following your story a little bit. And again, the school choice movement not being anywhere near what it is today.
Mhm.
My feeling was, she can't do that. Those
Mhm.
taxpayers in Copley Fairlawn are paying a heck of a lot more in taxes to have the computer lab and this, that, and the other thing. And she's not paying that because she lives
Right.
over here. She should stay in Akron. It was kind of I mean, I wasn't, married to it, but I just didn't really care that much about it
Mhm.
at the time. So let's address that fact. Let's talk about that fact. So at the time, you're in a school district where you're not paying a whole lot of taxes, and the people aren't.
Right.
Maybe that's reflected in the quality of some of the schools, facilities and so on and so forth. So why did you think it was okay at that time to put your kids in a place where other people are paying those taxes, and your kids are gonna take advantage of those?
So when my father asked me prior to that, when I was when I was about 30, no, sorry, when I was about 22. That's a big difference there. When I was about 22, because I just got married.
Okay.
He went out to Copley and he found some land. And he was like, I'm going to build a home on the land. I said, okay. He built a beautiful home. Um, he had 4 bedrooms. We were there all the time. My father paid taxes. It just wasn't for me, but it was for my daughters, or it was for someone's children. And so my father thought, I'm paying taxes. So you're right. Why would I think that? Why did I think that it was okay? Well, I'm listening to my father. I don't know all the details. I didn't know it was until all of this happened. I really truly didn't know how the system worked. I didn't. I didn't know that each child, this has to stay here in this district, and this has to stay with this child, and every child has this allotted money. I didn't know that. I got a quick one-on-one after it was done. But as a mom, as a divorced mom that's just trying to live and make my way through life, if I knew all the Ohio revised codes, I would be a genius. If I truly knew everything that fell under the law in the state of Ohio, it would be amazing. But I don't, and I
How
didn't.
how far was your father's house from your house where you and your kids lived?
It was about 3 miles. We both lived off of Copley
So
Road.
it's real close to the border of the district, right?
Yes,
Of the two
yes,
districts. So it wasn't like
yes.
you were okay. Why not? I mean, maybe there's an element to this that I'm missing here because you keep saying your father lived there. Your mom not? Were
No,
they
my parents both my parents there did, but my father was the one who got prosecuted.
okay? The reason I asked about that is I'm wondering if you got a 4-bedroom house and you keep saying your dad, it sounds like he's got a lot of space. Why didn't you just move in? Why didn't you just say, hey, we're not going to break the rules. We're going to live here where you're in this district. My father pays the property taxes, it pays for the schools, and we live here now. Why not just move in? Because I know you probably heard that question a lot in 2011 or 2012. And the people who criticized you said, if you wanted to go to
Yeah,
school in Copley Fairlawn, move to Copley Fairlawn.
yeah. Um, the crazy part of it is that initially, when I first got my divorce, I did live there, and then the kids were they were going to school in Akron. So look, it's like it's like this. It's like, you can't win out here. So also, my father had been sick. He had owned a business and he was doing really well. Then he got all these ailments, had a stroke. So I knew that my daughters were young, and I don't. I say this all the time, and I don't know do you have any girls?
I have a daughter.
You have one daughter.
I have a
Okay.
daughter and a son. Yes.
A daughter and son. Okay. How do you mind me asking how old your daughter is?
She's 25 now.
She's 25.
Yeah.
Okay. So when she was a little girl, we're going to say third, fourth grade, like my daughter, or middle school. Well, we'll stick with the third or fourth grade because this is the one.
Okay.
um, she when they would play, which they kind of really got it from me. A lot of times they would play, and my father he could watch them, but he could watch them for a time, like a period of time, right? Not like when I'm in college or I'm working, I'm going to school. For him to have my daughters under the roof for a long time, my father's attention span wasn't there. It just wasn't there. And so reason why I asked you about the age of your daughter to reflect back when she was a little girl.
Yeah.
My daughters were when they would play, they were screamers. Okay. And I don't know if anybody can relate because everybody's child is different. my daughters would scream, and I don't know, but that would do something to my dad. He'd be like, "Ah, what's going on? Why are you yelling? Stop all the screaming." Da, da." And so I knew that I couldn't stay with him
Mhm.
24/7. I just knew it. I was
He,
like,
he he couldn't handle it. He couldn't
he could,
handle your
he could,
daughters at that point in his life with his
he,
condition.
he couldn't, and I knew it. And and that's how can you? People don't care about that. They don't care if I well, this is why. They don't care about that. They care about what you mentioned earlier. You don't pay, they're pointing the finger at me. You this, you that, you did this, you broke the law, you're a criminal, you're a felon, you're this. They didn't care about the the other part of why. There was no, even if they even asked why, they had no com- sympathy or compassion or empathy about any of that. So it was really like a waste of air to even say that.
Well, other people are going to say, okay, well, you couldn't move in with your dad because of all those circumstances. Fine, we'll trust you and believe you. The conditions were what they were. Your daughters were the way they were, blah, blah, blah. Then move to a different place. Get a small apartment. Get a small apartment in Copley Fairlawn, in a district that you like better than Akron, but you got to follow the rules. The rules have to matter. Because I know a lot of people that are watching us right now, a lot of people who are my core listeners and viewers and so on and so forth through the years are saying she's no hero. She broke the law. The law has to matter. So, maybe they don't agree. And I doubt anybody really agrees you should have been charged with felonies. I think, as you pointed out in one of those interviews, this is not a murder trial. My kids are just going to a different district that's 3 miles away from where I am. And because of a dividing line that somebody drew, a zip code line or whatever, my kids have to go to this place instead of this place. So, but they're going to say, yeah, but the rules are still the rules and you have to follow them. So why not find a way to just get over there into a small place and,
I was
and, and
trying.
live over there?
I was trying, but people don't want to hear that either. I was trying. I was trying to find me a place. It was a Martin House right across the street that was affordable. And I was like, okay, the new year come in, I'll have enough money, I can do it. Nobody want to hear that. They want what they want to hear. And I never said I was a hero. So I want everybody to hear that first and foremost. I
You are seen,
never
though,
said I was a hero.
Kelley, why do you think you're speaking on Monday in Columbus with me, or at the same event I'm speaking at? Why do you think they're putting you up there?
I believe my story resonates with mothers, fathers, guardians, grandparents. There may be a lot of listeners that listen into your program that have they got the ideal family and they don't get it. They don't see that. But I promise you, there's a lot of parents from every social economic background that need help with their children, from Connecticut to California. I've helped change law in Connecticut with Gwen Samuel. I've helped talk at Arizona, the capital of Arizona, the capital of Chicago, or Michigan. I have. Am I saying that right? Yeah. I don't even know where I'm at half the time.
Travel a lot, huh?
I travel a lot to tell my story. I've never said I was a hero, though. I never said that. What I am is a mother. What I am is a mother that understands other mothers, a mother that understands other parents, that may not have the traditional perfect family, but they have they understand their child and they want their children to have the best possible education. And that's why you do see a wave of changes across the country. These last 15 years have not been in vain. I've been working my tail off. I have taken time off of my regular position at work. If someone called me and said, can you come here to talk, to speak, to tell your story, because you might help someone else, I'm there, period. And I don't care how anyone feels about me.
I'm not going to thrust a title on you and make you wear a cape by calling you a hero if you don't want to be one. But some of the stuff you're talking about, some people would say, because you help change laws and because you're advancing the cause, you said it yourself, for other moms, and for people who are school choice advocates, and I'm one of those. I hate the idea that somebody is stuck in a bad school district that isn't necessarily bad because of the school staff, faculty, facilities, and so on and so forth, but because they're in a district with your kids are in classrooms with other kids of parents that don't give a damn. And
Right.
when they don't give a damn, and when they don't enforce discipline on their kids, those kids go to school and they bring their undisciplined asses in with one another, and they make life impossible for kids
Yes.
whose parents do care.
Yes.
And I taught for 6 years. So
Mm.
I know one of them was more of a diverse city district. The other one was much more rural. But
Mhm.
I saw kids that were there to learn because mom and dad were home every night making sure homework got done,
Mhm.
made sure proper study time was made sure they were in school, they weren't ditching, all of those
Right.
kinds of things. And those kids in school were negatively affected by the kids of parents who didn't, whose
Yes.
kids were there to cause trouble, disrupt class, disrupt my classrooms that I taught in. And
Mhm.
I thought to myself, if my kids were stuck in a state like that, I was very fortunate to be able to raise my kids and put them in Catholic schools. We're a Catholic family.
Mhm.
But if they were stuck in a place where they were surrounded by that, I would do whatever I had to get them out as well. And people
Yeah.
look at you, and you did that, and that is heroic in a sense to a lot of people, Kelley, because you did what you had to do for your kids' well-being. Does
See,
that work for you?
absolutely. Yes, it does. Thank you. Yes, it does. And looking back, even me as a child, I was bullied. I was bullied in junior high. I didn't like it. So when you have your own children and you look at this baby, when you have that child and you look at that child and you say to yourself, I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you in this nasty world. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't be
It's
sorry.
not, it's not what I was trying to do here.
Don't be sorry. I could tell it's real, and I could tell you're trying to fight it off. You weren't trying to bring tears forth. You were trying to fight them back. But you remembered what triggered you just now was you remembered your own junior high experiences. You remembered getting bullied long before your children ever got bullied. That's what did it to you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I remember being at my locker every day at 2:50, and this girl, she would come up to me and she would be right in my head, right in my ear, and she would tell me, at 3:15, I'm gonna beat you up. I never bothered anyone. That kind of stuff is psychological. Look at me, I'm a grown woman, and it still affects me. Oh, I would never have told my parents at the time because my parents would have went up there and would have raised all kind of cane. So I had to deal with that. So how many children right now are in the same predicament? They're too scared to tell these parents about bullying, about what's going on at home. And so they got to deal with this every day. I was really glad that my kids told me. And then when my father said, you know what, just bring them out here, I was like, okay, I'll do it. I never thought that I never thought that I was going to be in this type of situation. I truly didn't know it was breaking the law. I'm telling you, I didn't know that because when I was in school, there was kids coming from all over. Promise you, back in the 90s and the 80s, kids was district jumping all the time. You see, think no one lived in the district. So why did I think I didn't invent that? But they made it sound like I created it, and I did not. And again, if I could, my dad died in jail because of this. If I could go back and change it,
What were his charges, if I might, Kelley? What were
his
his charges?
his charges was the same as mine. Okay, we both stood. If you see that video there, I think I'm pretty sure the video that you just showed, you see me
Yeah.
hugging him. We're on trial together. Our attorney's name was at that time was attorney. I can't remember, but he was right there. I forgot his name. I forgot his name. He was right there. How do you forget his name? How do I forget his name? Right now I can't think of it. But
You're a little distracted right now. I understand.
yeah, but he was so my father and I, we had the same attorney. Right there. Yeah, there he is. And he helped us, and our charges were the same. Okay. So then after our charges, what happened was they had to let my dad's charges go. You know why? Because my father didn't enroll them. My father didn't do anything. He just told me verbally, enroll your kids at the school. My father didn't go out there. He didn't enroll them. He probably wouldn't even know especially the he might have would have known. See, we were there together. He would have known maybe where the middle school was or the high school, but he wouldn't even known where the elementary school was located. Because that was like off in the it's like off into like the neighborhood. But he we stood trial together. So it was grand theft, tampering with documents, and that's him right there. He was already sick and having all kind of medical issues. Then and that was 30,000 per child. So they wanted me to pay back $60,000. I didn't have that. I promise you, I didn't have that.
If you had that, you probably would have moved into Copley, right?
Yeah, exactly. So wait a minute, I'm trying to stay on track to remember exactly what you asked. You said, so my father's charges. So what happened was they charged him for the same thing. We stood the trial together. Then they had to drop my father's charges. So what they did was when my father stood before the judge, he said to her, and this is his words. I remember this is verbatim. This is his words. He said, "You all are persecuting us, not just prosecuting, you're persecuting us." And he said that he was sick. And when he said that, you got to be careful what you say. When he said that, then they went and they start looking at everything. And they said, well, you stole $100,000 of medical insurance. And instead of like at a certain age, he was supposed to go over and what I understand is he was supposed to go over at a certain age and go over to something else. So if he say
Was he 65? Was it to go into Medicare? Is that what we're talking about?
yes. And so they said yes, it was. Now again, this was 15 years ago. I was already dealing with what he and I was going through, and then when that compounded over top of that, so to give you the exact details or word for word verbatim, I would not be able to do that, but I do remember it was medical, and they said that he stole $100,000 worth of health insurance. And then they said, so we're going to put you in a penitentiary. So they put him in a penitentiary for an entire year, and he never came home. He died. And mind you, my father had never been to the penitentiary before. So even if that was true, first time getting in trouble, you put someone away for an entire year that's in their 60s, that's already sick. Like how many people get on probation or like house arrest or like all kind of different things that you can do to somebody that's elderly, versus just saying we're going to put you in a penitentiary beside murderers and rapists. And he didn't even, and he wasn't even that kind of person, like it just didn't add up. It didn't make sense. I know a lot of people were upset and mad, and I felt like what I hated was the division in the city and in the township. Copley is a township. It's Copley Fairlawn. It's rural. It's like, well, I don't know if it's really rural. Well, certain parts are, but it's still like a township, right? And Akron is a city. There was a division now, and it was thick, and you could feel it. And I hated that because I'm not a dividing individual. I'm not a person.
What was the division? What were the two sides of the divide? Was it wealthy and poor, or was it black and white? I mean, I don't want to think it was racial.
It was racial, even more than the money, even more than financial. And that was the scary part, because it was like, why? Why? I was reading the comments, and the comments were nasty. And it's like, why? Like, why? I mean, Do I come off as a person who's a hateful individual? No. If you look at all the documentation, if you look at all the interviews, if you look at everything, my demeanor was always balanced and the same. And I was never a person who I never was a person that said, well, they're white and that's why they're doing this. You never heard me say that. You never heard me say that. And never wanted to think that. There's so many evil people out here that were so nasty in the comments and they made it a racial thing. Why? Why? Why?
Do you think that you were a part of this because of your color, or is it because that somebody? I don't know what the racial makeup is of Copley Fairlawn. I'm going to assume it's not like Akron. Akron is a very, very diverse and maybe even majority city. I don't know what the demographics are, what the percentages are, but Copley, I'm sure, is not like that. But there had to be other Black students in Copley Fairlawn somewhere, right?
Yes, absolutely. There were, of course, the majority was not, but I mean, but still,
Right.
they did have some.
But
They had some,
a decent percentage. I mean, like
yeah,
maybe okay. So
maybe
why?
maybe
So
like
why?
if if you talk the whole district, trying to recalculate, because I remember back then I could regurgitate to you every number back then, because after everything had happened, of course, now I'm studying, now I'm going back, and now I'm looking at all these
Yeah.
numbers and everything. But I think it had to be like 7%. It was like South Pacific was like 3%, and Asian was like, like 4%, and it was like that. It wasn't like a lot. It wasn't like a
Okay.
lot. It was just like it was some out there though. It
So
wasn't a
about
lot.
90% white, about 7% Black, somewhere in
There you
that
go.
neighborhood. Okay, but you
Yes.
weren't like the only. Your daughters weren't the only Black kids going to
No.
that school. So it's really
Again, remember, there were other parents that was coming from Akron as well going out there. And they were, what's the word? Busing, or not busing, but they were just carpooling.
okay.
And they were in Akron though. And a lot of kids play
Well, like you
basketball.
said, district jumping, yeah, was fine, and it's still
Yes.
common to this
Yes.
day. In fact,
Yes.
I know families that literally will take their kids from one district in which they live and enroll them in another district and lie about where they live. Putting their address down as somebody else's house, a friend or a distant family member, or something like
Yeah.
that, just for the sports teams, not to get their kid out of a crime area or a poor academic
Yeah.
performing area, but just because this sports team is better and they want to, a better chance at college or something. So
Do you
it
know how
still
many?
goes on
Yeah.
1,000% it does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know how many parents came to me after their child had graduated and they said, my child was there, but I lived on whatever street in Akron, and we did this, and they were very, very quiet about it. But they said, oh, we felt bad for you, but of course, it is,
What
it
were
is
they
what
going
it
to
is.
do? I mean, they can't
Right.
say, "Hey, we're doing it too." I mean, they were probably
Right.
like, "Oh
No,
man, I hope they
no.
don't get
Yeah.
us too."
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Exactly.
How did this is something that as I read up and tried to remind myself of what was going on in 2011 with your name and so forth, I couldn't find anything about your daughters. How did things turn out for them? They graduated. You said one graduated from Akron, the other one graduated from where?
Woolridge. So it's
Woolridge.
so my yeah,
So
so my go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's it. I just wanted to know what their life story has been now that they're adults, young adults. How are your daughters?
They are well. They're doing well. And my youngest one, she likes whenever I would go on speaking opportunities or engagements or something like that, she always would want to come with me. The other one, she's more reserved, more quiet. She didn't really. She's doing well. She has her degree in IT, but she's just kind of just into herself. And I know I felt like my daughters needed counseling, because I remember like if she was here today, I don't know how well she would be able to communicate and talk about what happened, because every time someone would interview or want to talk with her, all the emotions would come back. And there was times that she would tell me that she would be at her locker and a teacher, a staff would come up to her and tell her, you don't belong here. So with that, that in itself, I think did something to
It
her.
was hard for, yeah. I can see that would be. I can see, so,
Yeah.
I don't want to overstate it and say PTSD, like the same type of post-traumatic stress disorder that a returning soldier has because they've seen
No.
terrible things. But
Right.
stress can take a lot of forms, particularly in a young kid with a preformative brain, and they're just, you know, in their emotions and so forth, and they're being in the middle of a legal battle like this, to see their mom in those prison stripes. There's
Yeah.
probably a lot of post-traumatic stress that maybe your kids have, and that might have impacted their lives at this point.
Yes. And my youngest one, now she lives in North Carolina. We're on my other side, my mother's side, we're from Fayetteville, North Carolina, like Fort Bragg area. We're from
I
that
was going
area.
to ask you where the accent came from. I hear some Southern in you. I do.
Oh, do you?
Yes, yes. I was going to ask you where that was from.
Yes,
And I
yes.
hear a lot of it because my daughter's a Tennessee girl now. You know,
Oh.
she lives in Tennessee. We're down there a lot, and I hear that Southern accent. Carolinas too. Anyway, so
Yes,
go ahead.
yes. So she lives in North Carolina now, and she's doing well. So the funny thing about her was when all this had actually transpired, my oldest daughter had just no, she okay, she would I'm trying to get all these dates and things right. She was at the high school, she was staying there. But my youngest one, I had got a call from an anonymous gentleman who owned a professional team in New York. And the team was a hockey team. It was a hockey team. And I know the name of the team when I hear it. It's been 15 years and I'm not into hockey, but the gentleman he had his people contact me. So I'm getting somewhere with this. So they contact me and they say, "Hi, this is such and such from this place from the here, and we would like to pay for your daughter's education." And
Wow.
I'm like, "What?" So my youngest daughter, for 2 years, went to Our Lady of the Elms. She went there her freshman year and her sophomore year. And that was an awesome experience for
Is
her because
that's in New York, I assume?
oh no, it's in Akron. And it's
Oh,
a
that. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood when you told me the New York hockey team owner.
He
So I'm
was
sorry, I
from New
misunderstood.
York. No,
Okay.
you're right. He was from New York, and he contacted me, and he was like, "I want to help you with your child, you know, with your
Okay.
child's education." And I was amazed. I was like, "Okay." So, she was able to go to Our Lady before she went to Woolridge, because at that time I was still living in Akron for 2 years. So
Okay.
he helped her. She went to school, Our Lady of the Elms, or all girls school. So that gave her, it's so funny, and because I have two daughters, you know, they both grew up in the same household, but they both had two separate educations, okay? Because the Elms is an all-girl Catholic school, right? So her, so it's just funny to see how two children, inner city students, grad grow up, graduate, you know, their high school years, and it's just different. It's just like night and day because one graduated out of an inner city school dealing with a lot of stuff, right? Whereas the other one had opportunities. And that's why she's in North Carolina
I get
because
it.
she in her mind, I can do whatever I want to do, and I can do what I want to do, and I can excel, and I can be great, and I can so if people think that education.
If I might interrupt for just a second, did there come a point where you said to this hockey team owner who was, you know, heard about your situation and wanted to help? Um, did there come a point where you said, "That's very nice, but what about my other one? Can they both go to?" Or you know what I mean? Or how did they end up becoming split?
Well, okay, first of all, they both are 4 years apart. So the other one was a senior. She was getting ready to graduate.
Okay.
And the other
Yeah,
one was
you
going
did say
into
that before. Yeah, you said
yeah,
ninth or 10th grade and then fifth grade.
yeah.
So yeah,
And
that makes
so
sense.
and then the other one was getting ready to go to high school. And I did not want her at the high school that my other one had went to. If you think the oldest one was timid, with this one here was fragile and it was it was a lot going on. Anything that happened, she would just, oh my God, you know, she would just crumble. So I'm like, how is she going to be able to handle this school? And so it was just like right on time. And so it was just a blessing that happened, you know. So and I also want to mention, you say the stripes, right? So that's real footage. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone, you know, that's real footage. And I remember when I was put away, when they took me to, first of all, when they took me to the holding cell, you know, I just cried the whole entire time. I think I was in a holding cell for like, I don't know, hours, like 12, 13, 14 hours. I was in the holding cell. And then finally they came and got me and they took me, but they didn't put me in the regular population. They wouldn't put me in the regular population for several days. I was in another room. Strange. I've never been to the county before, right? I've never been to jail before. So they have another area that's not a part of the main population. So I was in this area there for several days until maybe, I don't know if the judge found out. I don't know who found out or whatever, but one of the sheriffs came to talk to me and she said, well, we got to put you in a regular population. I didn't ask. Like, I didn't ask to be put over there. I didn't ask to be put in the regular population. All I know is I'm going to jail. So it's not like I knew that there were options. You see, so I don't want anybody thinking no, I didn't know anything. I'm going to jail. So when I remember, and I want people to know this, when I walked through those doors, like when I went over there, oh no, before I get to that.
Okay.
Are we editing any of this? Because I know I'm going here and there.
No,
I'm sorry.
we're good. We're good. We're gonna run this just the way it is. I want all your emotions out there. It's all good. And I've got a lot more questions for you too. But go ahead and finish this one.
When I was in that room and I was there by myself, I had this whole area by myself. I mean, it was a nice little section by myself. My own TV, my own bed, this hard bed, everything, my own bathroom and everything. And I'm just laying there and I'm still livid. I'm still crying. I'm still upset. I'm still worried about my family too, right? I'm worried about my family and how they're feeling and what's going on over there at the house, just worried about my kids. I'm worried about their emotions. And the sheriff, he comes in and he says, the news station is here. I'm like, okay. He was like, they want to talk to you. And I was like, what do they want? Because I'm like laying there trying to think, I don't know what I was so depressed. I don't know what I was really thinking. I was just there. And so, they came. Yeah, I was in shock. But they came and they wanted to talk to me and I was like, okay. And so that's how they were able to get that footage. And I don't know how, to this day, I sometimes wonder how about that footage, because it was like, to them, it was great news. To me, this was my life. Like, I just remember them saying, okay, I need you to go back here and walk again. Okay, wait, that was a great shot, but we need you to do it again. And I'm like, I'm in jail. Like, I'm going through a lot of stuff. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about my job. Will I have a job? But to them, I don't know. It was just strange. It was just different. It was news, to them. And so, but that's how that footage was able to come about.
Let me put some more footage up here for just a second, if I can, too, because I just want to ask you what this was like. You became quite a celebrity. There you are on Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil was one of the most well-known and respected and beloved figures on daytime television. He featured your story. What was that like for you?
I was scared. First off, I've never flown before alone. That across the world, across the country. Like, that was, I mean, if you really want to, first off, I remember when, first off, they came here. And they followed me around town and they interviewed me. I don't know if they were trying to see if I was going to be a good fit. I didn't know how that worked either. Okay. I'm green on everything. And they followed me around town with a camera and stuff. And that was awkward, because again, I'm just a mom, right? And I got catapulted into that light, right? So they followed me around the camera. They had a crew. It was just different. Okay. And so I was just trying to get acclimated with it and all. And so anyway, I guess they take the film or whatever, they send it back out there. And I guess he said, oh, okay, she's a great fit. I assume they said she's a great fit. Let's do it, And so they producers called me. They asked me to fly out there. I'd never flown alone. I asked, could my father come with me, even though he had health issues? I needed to know. I wanted some kind of emotional support with me. And They told me no. They told me no, he could not come with me. And I was like, okay. So I get out there. I get out there. I remember,
This is LA?
yes, Los Angeles. Yes. I get out there to the LAX. They take me to the studio. This is like studio. Like this is big stuff here. This is like stuff I've never seen, but maybe saw it on TV or something. Like that studio was based inside of a whole bunch of big time movie stars studios. Like I'm talking old stars, I'm talking real stars, I'm talking stars of back in the day stars. This is the place. Was it Paramount? I don't know, I can't remember. It was one of those real big places like Paramount. It was big, and I'm like, what on earth? Where am I at? So I get out of the I think they had me in an Escalade. I don't know. I get out this car, this big black car, and I go in there and I'm sitting. They put me in my room. I got my name on the door. I got my name on the door. I'm sitting in there. I got food. I got candy. I got all kind of stuff. I'm just like, whoa, this is deep. This is not. I'm just a mom, right? You understand? I'm just a mom. So I'm sitting there, and next thing I know, I get a message saying that one of the news guys from here that hate my guts because he lived in Copley and he fought everything he could for Copley, he was there. So I was like, well, how is it that he's here, but my father couldn't come? So, because
they wanted somebody on the other side of the debate. That's
right.
why, right? Because they needed somebody to tell you why you were wrong, or tell everybody why you were wrong.
Why I was wrong. But me being naive and green and not knowing all of those things. And then not only that, they also had a mom there from the neighborhood. And and they wanted her to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then she was making up stuff. She was saying that she heard that I had made all this money. I'm like, made money? My thing was, if you were really into this, then they had all my information out there. They had how much I made, which was nothing. It was like I had 2 daughters and I made like 4,000 one year and 7,000 the next year. I qualified for the lunch, because that was one of the things that I qualified for the lunch. And so when she said that, I remember looking at her and I was like, who told you that? Like, did I lie about saying I live full time at my father's address? Yes, but that's it. Like everything else, you guys, come on. You guys are fetching, you really stretching it. You really trying to go overzealous with this, you see? So, and my thing was, as far as Dr. Phil, it's like, okay, so why would you have me come out, and you had a mom come out who didn't even know all the facts, and then you had Bob, his name was Bob Dyer, I think. They had him.
Akron Beacon Journal writer.
Yes, they had him come out, and then they had those two, and I was just like, I just thought that I had wanted my father to come with me on that journey, but he was very sick. I don't even know if he probably even would have made it that far anyway, honestly, that kind of trip, because that was a 3, I think it takes like 3.5 hours to get out there. I don't know. I can't remember, but it took a long time to get out there.
From Cleveland or Akron to LA is more like 5.
5. Yeah. So that's a long trip. That's a long trip. And so, but anyway, and Dr. Phil, I felt he was okay. I felt when the camera was on, he wanted to be on the fence, or he wanted to definitely be an opponent. I felt when the camera was off, he was like, look, I totally get it. I understand. Da, da, da. And it was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you, when that red light is off, how do you agree with me and understand everything? But when that light is on, well, let's see here. I'm like, but I'm already there now. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him like,
and I can tell you, as a longtime talk show host too, not on Dr. Phil's level, don't get me wrong, but the goal of most hosts, if they have a debate, that's why they flew the enemy of yours, or whatever you called him, somebody who didn't like you or resented you from Mount Copley, whatever. They want to create a story in which people have to pick sides, and he's going to have to take a little dig to get things going, to make sure, because that's what you do, is you want to make sure that that the debate, if you will, is going to draw people from everywhere to watch.
Yes,
They don't
yes.
want everybody agreeing with you or
True.
everybody agreeing with the other side. So he's
I
going to do
understand.
that sort of thing. But so that's a different experience for you. So let's bring it current now. Who are you? What are you doing now? You're traveling a lot. You told me you traveled to talk to, different governments, and you said you were in the capital of Michigan, and you were out in Arizona at the state capitol there, and a bunch of other places. So, is that what you do, or career-wise? Did you write a book about your experience? I mean, it seems like there's so many things you could do. What is your life like right now?
I did write an autobiography.
You did. I should
I
have
did.
known. I dropped the ball on that. I didn't do that
Yeah.
homework.
No,
Uh,
it's okay. I
what's
wrote an
it
auto.
called?
It's called the Kelley Williams-Bolar story. But I have not like really pushed it out there because um
I'm going to
it,
look
like,
for it while you're talking.
I'm pretty sure it's called the Kelley Williams-Bolar story. It's on Amazon, so you can check it out on Amazon. Um, and okay, so I still work in education. I work with children with special needs, autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, hearing impaired. I love working with children. I love working with kids. Okay, I speak. I talk to children. I like telling my story because a lot of kids take their parents for granted, right? And they don't
Mhm.
know all the things that parents do for you. They don't know all the things that parents do for them. So I like telling my story to the youth and tell them how to love and respect your parents because you don't know what they do for you. So I love doing that. I love, I also, go ahead.
How do you feel about the school choice movement now? The idea, I mean, in the state of Ohio, the backpack bill, where the money follows the child, it doesn't stay in the district, it follows the child. And if you are in a bad, or your children are in a bad school or in a bad environment or whatever, you shouldn't be sentenced to that place, or your kid's sentenced to that place for 12 years just because of your zip code. If you want to go to a better place, a charter school, a private school of some kind, or just a better public school, the money follows. Is that your position now? Is that every child should have a
I
choice of where they go to school?
it is. I love that. Also, though, I do still feel that you still should be a big disciplinary on your child to make sure that that child can fit into that environment without behaviors. Because if that child is used to being in an inner city and being defensive, and everything is a defensive, and everything is a defensive mechanism, where you always everything someone says, you think that it's a strike at you, and then all of a sudden you get this opportunity to take your child to a private school, but yet that child embedded in him or her for so many years, and now they bring all of that energy to this another environment and disrupts that environment. See, so a lot of so it's so deep. Some of this stuff is so deep that it's like I'm a true advocate for it. I love it. I want that, but I also want it to be honored. Don't take it for granted. If you have that opportunity to go to another school, then take that opportunity and do well by it. You understand? I'm a liaison for Available to All. They are a watchdog for redlining, for gerrymandering, for they incorporate all of that kind of stuff into zones, right? And so that's something that they do. I also work with oh my goodness, I work with everybody, all the big time organizations. Erica Jedinek, I can't pronounce her last name. With their organization, like I work with people that call me to do advocacy work. I'm gonna and I'm until school choice. I work with them. I until the day I will not be breathing anymore. I will continue to do that because I don't know who I'm helping. I don't need to help my children anymore. My children are grown. They don't have any children. It's kind of scary because like I want to be a grandma. All my friends are grandmas. I'm not a grandma yet. And I mean I'm not rushing them, but at the same but because of course I want them to do the right thing, get married and have their family. But all this work I'm doing now it's because I have the passion for it. And luckily people do know the name. And if I can make a change out here to help, so even the people that don't like me and or the people that feel like, she's a criminal. But if I can even help their children or their children's children, I'm gonna do it.
Two questions left.
Mhm.
One, if you could go back 15 years, knowing everything you've gone through for the last 15, knowing about the trial, knowing about the charges, knowing about, your dad and everything else, would you do it the same way?
No, 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 no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely. I'm a private person. I felt like I was this ant in this great big
But does
world.
that
Everybody,
does that mean you would have just kept your kids in Akron schools and been
yeah,
that's
I
it?
would. Yes, yes. Yes, instead of being uh with all of that chaos and confusion and disruption and division in two towns and all of this and people looking at me like I'm just a horrible individual and my dad, don't forget my dad, he died. So being that my father died, of course, no, I would never do this again, do that again, ever.
Okay. So, and I appreciate that candor. That's very honest because I could see you going the other way and saying my babies were my babies and they were the top priority. And even though a lot of other bad stuff happened, I of course would look out for my babies. You could make that. There's no wrong answer here.
Right,
But
right.
because you went through a lot, your father went through a lot, your kids went through a lot too. So I could see why you'd be like, no way
Yeah.
would I do that. So that's the
So,
reason I asked. Go ahead.
so I also want to say something too. So when my father died, he died shackled to a bed alone. What? How far? He was in Columbus. When a prisoner gets sick, they take them to a hospital. At that time, I don't know if it's still the same. So if somebody knows, then they can put that comment in there. But I'm just saying, they at that time they would take that person to a hospital in Columbus, and Columbus takes all the prisoners that. They just take prisoners, and so my father was a prisoner, right? So they took him to, and he was shackled to a bed. My father, can you imagine having a father who fought for you, ended up getting into all of this, dying, shackled to a bed? Just everything. He wasn't even, he didn't even know he was alive anymore. Okay. When we went to, when I was finally able to see him, because I was A and he was B, they wouldn't even let me see him. So the story is so deep. We wouldn't even have enough time to talk about everything. You understand? So to see my father shackled to a bed on a dialysis, a trach in his throat, he's not, he doesn't even, he's not even conscious that he's alive, and his arms are his one arm is shackled to the bed, and his leg, his ankle is shackled to the bed, like he's some rapist or murderer or something, and he's never done anything ever in his life. No, I wouldn't do this again. To see my dad, and then we get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning saying your father is dead. What do you want us to do with him? What? What? My daddy was my daddy. Your daughter looks at you every day and you are her daddy, not her dad, not her father. You are her daddy. And if anything ever happened to you, she would probably come and raise all kind of cane for her daddy. That was my daddy. So no, I would never do that again.
I'm sorry to make you emotional like that with questions like this, but I fully appreciate your willingness to let your emotions show. The last thing I wanted to ask you, Kelley, is just what message would you have for a parent right now of kids who are in a bad school, whether it be inner city or it may be a rural school? A lot of those rural schools where they're just, there's very few houses in a particular district because they're on farms or whatever the case might be. And there's not a lot of money in those places either. But
Yeah.
so they don't have the facilities. They don't necessarily have, the best education available, whatever the situation, urban or rural or suburban. But you got a kid or a parent who feels like this is just not the right place for my kid. What's your advice to them?
Well, tell them to move. I'll tell them to move. Just like everybody told me to move. I was probably just say move, just move, try to find a better resource for your child's future, because our children are our future.
Of course, if we keep pushing school choice hard enough and get fully unfettered, access to education where it's not decided by whatever zip code you're in, then maybe you don't have to move. Maybe just say, we're going to go here. We're going to drive the kid 20 minutes to school each way if that's what it takes to be in the right kind of the place. But
I like
because I
that.
know that's what we're fighting for. A lot of us are fighting for anyway. I'm a big, strong believer in school choice. I've done a lot of interviews with a lot of people who are very much in the activist world, where they're trying to get laws changed. They're lobbying, legislatures in Ohio and other places to try to make sure that all schools are available to all kids. Particularly those who have parents who want the best for them, and not the uninvolved, trapped in a school with the uninvolved parents, where the kids are just off the chain, and
No.
and it's just not a safe or a healthy academic environment for their kids. So that's what it's all about. So Kelley, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say on the stage in Columbus, where I will be as well on Monday, the 22nd, as we celebrate America at 250 years, celebrate Ohio, and yes, argue and advocate for making things better, including making sure our kids have the right access to the schools that they belong in. So Kelley Williams-Bolar, thanks for retelling your story. Sorry to make you break up a little bit, but I appreciate all the candor and all the information you shared. Thank you, Kelley.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm happy I can't wait now I'll feel more comfortable on stage because I have somebody who I have a small rapport with. So yeah.
There you go. Well, we'll get through it together.
Yes.
All right, Kelley, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Clock in at midnight, vest on, boots laced. Another name on the paper, another hard case. Got a wife back in Lubbock, kids in their Sunday best. I ain't some villain in a movie, I'm a man doing my best. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody's safe today. You hold that sign, I hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Saw you playing for cameras, shoving phones in my crew, spitting words like traitor, like you know what we go through. When you circle that transport, like it's some kind of game, there's a scared little girl in the backseat, you don't even know her name. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody's safe today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Then you shove them into harm's way. You turn a bus into a battlefield. I'm just trying to get them home today. Call me every name you can think of, I'll still show up when it hits the fan. When the dust clears, when fear's near, we'll see who really ran. You can scream in my face, you can block my way, but this badge on my chest means somebody's safe today. You hold that sign, I'll hold this line in my hands. While you're chanting the street, I'm the one who stands. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand. Yeah, you draw your crowd, I draw a line in the sand.
Now, while we look forward a little bit at the next 250, I want to go back now to have a conversation with somebody that I never thought I would be having a conversation with. And that's because he is the first president of the United States, often known as the father of our country, often known as General George Washington, in addition to President George Washington. What am I talking about? I'm going to go back here to 1775 and 1776 through a man that I can say maybe is just inspired by living history, because that's what he does. He goes back into history and he channels the spirit of some of the most important leaders in our country's history and maybe even world history. His name is Ken Hammontree, and I first met Ken when I got the chance to share a stage with him. In a manner of speaking, I was giving a speech myself and doing some emceeing, and I got to introduce a man who was dressed in full George Washington. I almost said George W. Washington. Sorry about that, General. I didn't mean to confuse you with George W. Bush. George Washington was in full regalia. I mean, Continental Army General George Washington was at the event that I spoke at in Oregon. It was the Oregon Conservative Club, I believe, in Toledo Tea Party. And it was just a few weeks ago. And I watched and listened to a presentation that I had never heard before from a man who, like I said, portrayed General Washington, everything from the manner of speaking to the actual firsthand accounts of some extraordinary times, including the crossing of the Delaware, which was such a crucial moment in the battle for our freedom from tyranny from the British Crown. I heard a presentation that I'd never heard before, and I learned a little bit about a man that I had never met before. He does this all over the country. He has a company essentially called Living History Productions. And I told him at the time, after I heard his recounting in the first person of the battle, the crossing of the Delaware and the Battle of Trenton, I heard a story, after hearing that story, I talked to him and I said, I need you to share that story with my audience on my live stream podcast. And he said, I'm happy to do so. And after some maneuvering and some technical logistical assistance he got from one of his students, we have been able to make this happen. So I want to bring onto our program now an historian and a history teacher, educator, as well as, again, the man who runs Living History Productions, General George Washington, and many other titles as well, Ken Hammontree. Ken, good to see you, my friend. How are you, good sir?
We are doing great tonight. Beautiful evening.
I love the fact that this is your first time ever on a podcast.
Well, this is true. I'm a little nervous.
You have no reason to be nervous because the story you're going to tell, I feel like you have told many times over, along with many other stories from historical perspectives. So you have nothing to worry about. But the fact that you're willing to step out of your comfort zone and onto a webcam and to do a podcast like this is really appreciated. So, and you know what else is really appreciated? Go ahead and lift that shirt up a little bit. Show everybody what we're flexing there from Ashland, Ohio. There it is. Indians all the way. And I love that.
Yes.
Not Guardians, but Indians.
No. Indians.
Do you still have any Chief Wahoo merchandise?
I do. Yes. I also have a pennant. My dad took me to see the Cleveland Indians back in 1952 or 53.
Wow.
I have all the memorabilia of that.
What about from the 48 World Series?
I have that pennant too.
Beautiful. That's great. I have a lot of Wahoo stuff myself. I'm never going to accept the chain. What do you make of that? You're a historian. How important is the history of things like the Cleveland Indians? The fact that they were forced to change their name by baseball and the inconsistency of the whole thing, because the Braves remain a thing and they're allowed to tomahawk chop their way all, to the World Series, right? And the Indians had to give up theirs. What's your feeling on this changing of history to reflect modern political correctness as a historian?
It flows all throughout history. A lot of our politicians have a propensity to change things. The deal with the Cleveland Indians was all political. That everywhere I go, everybody calls the tribe the Indians. Very seldom I hear the other word. I don't even mention the other word.
You're like me. You're like me, Ken. I won't do it. I won't give it the light of day if I can avoid it. I don't think I've even slipped on it, to be 100% honest with you. I was still so angry about it. But what really frustrates me too, and I don't know if you do any of the, history portrayals of America and not even pre-colonial America, but, when we're talking about, Native Americans before even the settlements, a lot of the descendants of those original native indigenous persons, if you want to call them that, tribes, they're angry when when their symbols are taken away, because they feel like that's what's literally wiping out their history is, the calls to get rid of names like Redskins and Warriors and Indians and Seminoles and some of the other chiefs and things like that, that they kind of take it personally when people want to wipe out their history.
That's right. That's right. It goes to statues, removing high school names, removing military installations. I think President Trump has brought back some of the names of our military installations. But across the border, all politics.
Yeah, it really is. And it's really frustrating too. So, and especially I would imagine for a person like you who's an historian. So, all right. So Ken, let's talk a little bit about Living History Productions before we talk about the specific thing I brought you on here to talk about, which is to share with this audience what you told the audience of 220 or so folks in Oregon, Ohio, a few weeks back. Tell me about Living History Productions. What do you do?
Well, when I graduated from college, graduated from Malone University and went right into education, started teaching, wet behind the ears. A lot of the students did not have the same excitement I did about American history. I taught American history, Ohio history, world history, U.S. government, and U.S. Constitution. So I decided to do something about it. So the first character that I portrayed in Ohio history was Johnny Appleseed, AKA John Chapman. That seemed to go over with my class. Then I stepped it up in American history. I dressed up like Paul Revere, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. The kids loved it. And that just took off from there. Before long, libraries were calling to have me come in and portray. I guess the highlight was the time I had an opportunity to do Warren Gamaliel Harding on C-SPAN television when they were doing a whole series on the presidents of the United States. But virtually Living History Productions started in the classroom trying to bring history alive to our students, that they could see George Washington standing there with his sword talking about crossing the Delaware River, or what happened at Valley Forge. And my students just loved it. So even up to this day, I still teach, and periodically in my class, I will dress up like a different character.
I bet they love that. I know I would. And I didn't really appreciate my history teachers nearly as much as I probably should have. I became more of a student of history after stopping being a student. As I became an adult, I became much more aware of the importance of the things that, when normal students are just like, it's just another class. It's another part of American history class or world history class or what have you. I got to learn these things to pass the test and done. Just like most of us don't remember algebra. We don't remember a lot of that stuff. So it took a while for me to understand the importance of it. I would have loved to have seen what you did, but let us share a little bit of some of the other stuff that you've done here. So this is a website that you say is run by your friend Joe Lyons, who does all of your publicity work and so forth, your photography. And I'm a little bit upset about the fact that right now that seems to be whited out, the portrayal that you had of Johnny Appleseed. But as you can see, hopefully people can see this. I'll zoom it up a little bit here.
That's Mozart.
That is Ken Hammontree portraying Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in Mozart. So it's not just military or political figures. You're just all over the map here with the characters you portray.
I just love Mozart. So, and I teach music appreciation also. So it all just fits right in.
It sure does. So here you referenced Johnny Appleseed being the first
Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, there you go. That's a part of the video there that people can watch if they wanted to go. It looks like it's ashlandcountypictures.com. ashlandcountypictures.com if you want to see or view or watch any of these videos. Here is Ken Hammontree as General George Patton, and you're blocked out a little bit by the play button there. Let's click that for just a second and see what it looks and sounds like here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this evening. My name is Major Taylor. I'm one of General Patton's senior. Tonight is the evening of January 27th, 1945, and General Patton is addressing the press corps on the Battle of the Ardennes. On January 7th, 1945, intelligence from G2 informed the Allied command that Hitler had agreed to withdraw his forces from the Ardennes, including all SS Panzer divisions, thus ending all offensive operations.
I'm not sure why the pause button is right in the middle of the frame there, but I'm looking over at you and how stoic you are sitting there. You're in character before you ever step to the microphone, aren't you, Ken?
You have to be. Yeah, about 15, 20 minutes before a performance, I slap my face and I go back into time.
How do you, and I don't know if I can fast forward a little bit here. I guess I can, to see you up there at the podium and see what you sound like here. So I don't know why. This is obviously on the website, but for whatever reason, the play button and the pause button are right in the center of the screen. People can watch this on YouTube if they wish, but let's just give them a little bit of a taste here.
I want to thank the Army Press Corps for allowing you to be here at Bastogne. My only request is you stay close to your MPs. You're approximately, at this point, 5 kilometers from the front lines still. And there are German sharpshooters in the area.
Ken, I want to ask you, just that little tiny taste that I just got right there. How much do you study these characters before you decide you're going to get a uniform, a costume, whether it be Mozart or whether it be Martin Luther or whether it be Patton or George Washington? How much do you have to study about who they are, not just what we know about them, but who they are and what they sound like, what their mannerisms are, what their gait is like when they're walking, the way you were sitting even. Certainly the way they deliver their memorable speeches and so forth. How much work goes into each one of those?
Well, with General Patton, you're looking at 5 years preparation. I really cannot reproduce his voice because he spoke a high pitch. Mm-hmm. And I tried it and it doesn't work. So it takes about 5 years. You study the uniform. You have to get permission from the War Department to have 4 stars. I requested all his ribbons that he would wear. That all has to be passed through them, or I could be arrested for impersonating an officer. I know when I spoke down at Fort Knox, I spoke to about 5,000 troops down there at Fort Knox. And I really felt weird running around as a 4-star general, especially when I came up on a 1 or a 2-star general. And it's sort of, I'm thinking, are they going to arrest me for impersonating an officer? But it takes about 5 years studying uniforms, characteristics, the times that they lived in, events going on in the world. It takes a while.
When you have a performance or a portrayal of somebody like Patton, and there's already been a legendary performance and portrayal of Patton, mm-hmm. George C. Scott. Do you still just study Patton, or did you study how George Scott portrayed him?
I watched the movie several times. George C. Scott had that deep voice, which Patton never had. But
he sounded a lot tougher, didn't he? When George, yeah,
yeah, yes, I do study movies, scripts, and so forth. It just takes a long time. You just don't decide I'm going to be George Patton and go before 5,000 veterans, which I've done before, and do General Patton. You've got to know your stuff. You've got to know your dates, your times, your places, events. You have to speak their language. And if you don't, you'll come across as foolish.
So I want to throw another one up here on the screen if I can, as long as we're doing American heroes. General Eisenhower. Let me scroll down on that so people can see the image there. There you are. And let's play this just for a couple of seconds here as well. And we'll fast forward to you. Here we go.
In Mexico, not too far from the Texas border, they were setting up camps. People were not aware of that. People were not aware at that time that the Japanese had plans to invade Alaska. They had already starting to send balloons over California with time bombs on them. Most Americans were not aware of this. If we had known at that point of the buildup of the Wehrmacht in Mexico, or the buildup even before Pearl Harbor of the Japanese thinking about invading Alaska, things might have been a little different.
Do you watch yourself a lot, Ken, after you deliver these performances? Do you go back and critique and see what you could have done better, or do you just kind of want to be organic each time you go out?
Organic. I very seldom look at myself. I did the C-SPAN deal with Warren Gamaliel Harding. He was one of our worst presidents, even though he was a Republican. I never cared for Harding. So I did review that, but that's about the only one.
Do you have a favorite?
I would say, even though I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, my favorite president is Harry Truman. I love doing Harry Truman. Great president, no college education, graduated from high school, was a pig farmer, down-to-earth, a family man. And when Roosevelt died, that poor guy had no idea about the Manhattan Project, what was going on. Nobody said anything to him. He only met with Roosevelt, I believe, 2 times before Roosevelt passed away. A great president. Of course, you had the Truman Doctrine, Berlin Airlift. The main thing was he had to make the most important decision any president up to that time had to make, dropping the atom bomb. We had 3 atom bombs. We dropped 2. We had 1 other atom bomb ready to go. And he had to make that, I guess, momentous decision, and he made it. A great president, a great man, family man. I love doing Harry Truman.
Did he make the right decision?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
President Truman. As President Truman now, I want you to answer me. President Truman, why did you make the decision to drop those atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing roughly, 120,000 people in 2 massive blows, innocent people in those cities?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you make that decision, sir?
It was a hard decision to make. I met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and we decided to do a calculation on all the American troops killed on the various islands as we were approaching the island of Japan itself. The last island before you would get into the mainland or the main island of Japan, we lost 56,000 troops. It was unbelievable. The destruction, the death rate of our soldiers. And we knew, and the information was given to me as President of the United States, that if we would land on the island of Japan, they would fight for every inch. Men, women, and children. They would place rifles in the hands of women and children. It would be a mass slaughter. It was given to me an estimate from my Joint Chiefs of Staff, George Marshall, that there would be close to 100 to 150,000 KIA almost within 2 or 3 months of taking the island of Japan. The destruction in wounded, in death, and also for the civilian population of Japan would be horrendous. So I had to make a decision. Yes, there were going to be casualties of women and children. I understood that, but I also looked at my own soldiers that I'm responsible for, and I made that decision to drop the 2 bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, realizing the consequences. But in the far end of all of it, it came back to me. It was the right decision to make. It saved thousands upon thousands upon thousands of lives.
Did you, I apologize, I didn't want to get to the Martin Luther yet. Did you, Mr. President, usher in the nuclear age? No one has dropped an atomic bomb or a nuclear bomb since that time, but they have been built. And there is now, if 1 or 2 of the bombs that were kind of born of the Manhattan Project and those atomic weapons that you decided to deploy, this world could be blown up 100,000 times over with the amount of nuclear power that has been created. Did you usher in something that you shouldn't have?
No. If I had to make the same decision today, I would make that decision today. I talked with Oppenheimer. Of course, we can really thank God that Oppenheimer got out. He got out of Germany just in time. And most of the engineers on the Manhattan Project were German, of course, as you know. And if Hitler would have got the bomb, and he was very close, Adolf Hitler, to get the atom bomb. So was Japan. All these other Russia, they were all working on heavy water, trying to bring this to fruition, this bomb. Fortunately, God was with us. We had the know-how, we had the scientists, and of course, we got there first. Yes, I realize that did usher in the atomic age. Anything can happen, but if I would still go back and look at it as President of the United States, saving as many lives as I could of American troops, I would do the same. And also saving the lives of the Japanese also, because there would have been hundreds of thousands of Japanese killed.
So tell me this, President Truman, if Hitler himself had gotten that bomb, if Hitler had threatened to use that bomb, and we, the Allies, had taken it from him, would you have used his deadly killing machine like that, his most destructive thing to take all of those lives? Would you still have done it? Because you already borrowed German scientists for the technology, and you already had Oppenheimer. But what if it came directly from the possession of Hitler, knowing who he was, knowing what he was, knowing how history would remember him? Would you have used Hitler's bomb?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only Oppenheimer, but you had some of the greatest German scientists. Albert Einstein managed to escape Germany in the 1930s. But I can tell you this, Bob, as President of the United States, if Adolf Hitler would have achieved the completion of the atom bomb, you would be speaking German today. And so would I. There's no doubt about it.
I think you're correct on that, Mr. President. And Ken, I really appreciate you slipping right into character like that. And I was asking the most difficult things I could think of on the spot, because clearly I agree with you. That had to be done. It saved so many lives. You know, the decision had to be made. But I just kind of wanted to throw a few wrinkles in there.
It's okay.
Let me
say one thing. President Trump has done the same thing. President Trump lately has had to make some tremendous decisions that were not popular decisions with what's going on in Iraq. And so I've compared President Trump in many ways to Truman. And we know about Trump. He makes a decision. If he says something, he's going to follow through with it, and you better watch out. If he gives you a warning, and President Truman gave the Japanese 2 weeks of dropping literature into the island, warning them this was going to happen. This is going to happen. And they didn't believe it, and it did happen. And President Trump gave the same warnings, and you don't want to play the Trump game, because Trump will win out every time.
I want to go back a little bit again, and this will be our last modern history conversation before we get into the birth of this country, since we are now celebrating for multiple weeks, in before and after the 4th of July
Right.
and our declaration 250 years ago. We'll go back to that in a moment. But let's go a little bit before President Truman had to make that call, and let's talk about D-Day. You've portrayed President Eisenhower. He was in charge. He had to make the call and give a green light to Operation Overlord or not. There's a movie out right now I have not yet seen, but my son said was phenomenal. It's called Pressure, and it deals with the extraordinary complexities. It wasn't just about manpower and machines and boats and enough, to storm the beaches, fortified beaches at that. But the weather was such a massive role in the decision on to do it and when to do it. So Slip into character again there and tell me what went into your calculus as to when and if to launch D-Day and Operation Overlord.
Well, we realized coming into June that weather was going to play an important factor on the invasion. You're dealing with the English Channel. You're dealing with weather patterns coming down through Normandy. And to me, the most important person was Stagg, who was our meteorologist. And probably if somebody would ask me what we had that was over and above what Germany had for the invasion, it was we had better meteorologists that planned this out weather-wise. Weather is so important, even as Napoleon talked about the weather. Hitler should have been more aware of the weather before he invaded Russia. Weather plays a very important role, whether or not you're going to be successful in an invasion. And so my first thought was, what is going to be the weather on June the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or 5th? We initially were going to go on Monday, June the 5th. But here again, we had a great meteorologist that basically laid out the picture for us. It's going to be terrible. Don't try it. It would not succeed. And so thereby we waited until June the 6th, Tuesday morning at 0630 hours. 175,000 of our troops hit those 5 beaches in Normandy. There was not a coward in one of those men. Every one of them knew exactly what they had to do in order to free Fortress Europe. And I was proud of every one of those men. There were no cowards on those beaches. There were no politics. There was no color. There was no racism. There was nothing, because you realized the person next to you, your life depended on that person. And your goal was to free Fortress Europe from the tyranny of Nazism. And they did it.
Mr. President, before they launched and started across the channel, you visited all of them. You visited the troops. You visited the 101st.
I did.
You knew you were sending boys and young men off to their deaths.
Yes.
You knew that. You 175,000 strong. What was your message to them, knowing that you were sending them to that, and with them knowing that they were about to be, crossing that channel into an unknown and an incalculable hell of fire from the Nazis when they got there? What did you say to those young men, and how did they respond?
Well, first of all, we were not going to mention the invasion. Nothing about war. My wife and I had just purchased a farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I love farming. I love horses, Spanish mules, cattle. And I knew that some of those boys of the 101st Airborne were farmers. So I went up and down the line. We talked about farming. We talked about their future as farmers. Where are you from, son? From Minnesota, sir. What do you do in Minnesota? I'm a farmer. I'm a pig farmer. Where are you from, young man? I'm from Ohio, Massillon, Ohio. What do you do? I'm a mechanic. What are you going to do when this war is over? I'm going back and I'm going to be the best mechanic ever. So we went up and down that line, and I talked to whoever I could talk to. And I realized that over 50% of those young men that I was talking to would either be dead or wounded in 6 hours. And I knew that. I was sending them to their death. But we didn't want to talk about that. We wanted to talk about life, about their dreams, the futures that they feel like they are going to have. And that's what we talked about that day, farming.
Mr. President, it's an extraordinary story. And I just want to ask one final question about this particular historical account.
Sure.
And what happens if that's a failure? Either due to the weather or just due to overpowering Nazi, fortifications on those beachheads. If they were able to beat your boys, our boys back, Mr. President, what does the world look like at that time? And what does the world look like today?
Well, I gave Kay Summersby, who was my secretary, two letters. One of them announcing victory, that we have established the 5 beaches of Normandy. The other one, we were not successful. We were pushed back into the sea. I take full responsibility. Me alone, no one else. I made that decision to go. If it would not have been successful on Tuesday at 0630 hours, that probably would have pushed it back another 6 months. And we would have had to do it all over again. But this time, the Wehrmacht, which is the German war machine army, would be up to what we were doing. Up to this point, it was in total secrecy as much as we could. And of course, some of our operations of Overlord, Operation Neptune, Operation Lies, and we all knew that the best liars are politicians, and we knew that. And Winston Churchill basically said, if politicians can lie, why can't we as leaders in our army set up a series of lies that the Nazis would accept? And they did. And that's another story. But we had a whole set of lies set up. Adolf Hitler took that sick line and sinker, and they moved all their troops, the Waffen SS, all the way up to the shortest point across the channel at Caen, and they fell for it. And that opened up the beaches. The tragedies would have been far greater if the SS, Waffen SS, would have been there on some of those beaches, especially Omaha. We lost about 2,200 men on the beaches of Omaha, let alone. So sometimes lies are really good, and our spy system was really good, and the greatest spies are always and will always be females.
Wow. How many presidents do you do? Because I kind of assumed that you did FDR too. So obviously not. Tell me how many presidents you have portrayed over the course of the Living History productions.
Well, I General George Washington, or President Washington. I'm doing him about 40 times this summer. It's unbelievable.
Wow,
Speaking
really?
again. Yes. Then Thomas Jefferson. Next week, I'll be doing Thomas Jefferson, talking about the Declaration of Independence, which I'm trying to memorize as fast as my little noodle up here will. And then, of course, I do Madison. And although Franklin was never president, he's the only one that signed all the documents. Declaration of Independence. He signed the U.S. Constitution. He signed the peace treaty. I mean, that guy's name was on everywhere. But then I do not do Abraham Lincoln.
Don't? I'm shocked by that too.
I'm not tall enough.
You can wear lifts and heels, because I bet you would be an amazing Lincoln. But okay, so who else?
And then, of course, I do Harry Truman, my favorite president. Love Harry Truman. General Dwight David Eisenhower. And I'm working on Ronald Reagan, who is my greatest president, Ronald Reagan. And that's it.
And do you do the Berlin Wall speech, or is that what you're working on?
I'm working on the Berlin, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And in a few years, when his time is up and his legacy begins to be understood, will you have anything from President Trump?
If I'm still here. But I've been teaching since 1973, so my days are numbered, but that's okay.
Well, Ken, that's fantastic. I love how many different types of characters. And, I started to show this, and I'll just put it up there. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, just to show the versatility that you have in the characters that you portray, from presidents and generals and Ben Franklin and all the rest. Martin Luther, tell me about that.
Oh, great man. I did Martin Luther a couple of weeks ago up in Cleveland. Fortunately or unfortunately, there were quite a few Catholics there. That was fun.
Catholics don't hold any grudges against Lutherans, do they? Come on.
No. But we all know what happened, in 1517 on All Saints Day, October 31st, 1517. Martin Luther had enough of indulgences and some of the perpetual crimes at that time of the Roman Catholic Church, and he nailed his 95 Theses up there on the door, the castle at Wittenberg, and the whole thing just exploded across Europe. And of course, along with the Gutenberg press that helped bring out all his materials, the Gutenberg press, I don't know how many of the paperwork it printed out of the 95 Theses, but it spread. And on October the 31st, All Saints Day in 1517, there was only one, let's say, person who was a reformer. And then the next week, there were thousands all across Europe as the 95 Theses took off. And then before long, the Catholic Church started to wake up. Of course, you know, Martin Luther was excommunicated from the church, which he considered a red badge of courage. And he just enlightened the whole world that no longer we will be Roman Catholic. But you know, Martin Luther did not want to leave the Catholic Church. He just wanted to reform the Catholic Church, but they did not want anything to do with that. And so they kicked him out. And then, of course, when he married a nun, that really did him in.
Well, that's a fascinating variety of different characters you can go into historically. But the one that I really invited you on to do is give us a bit of an abbreviated version, maybe not. I don't know how long that exact presentation was, maybe about 20, 30 minutes. But I was enthralled when you did this. And let me go ahead and pop this one up on the screen now, because this is the first time I met you and became aware of Living History Productions. And this is, of course, in Oregon, Ohio, as we talked about just a couple of weeks back. And you were in full George Washington regalia. And you were recounting the story. And I think I've got one other picture up here, if I could do that, of you with some, there's some weird guy who was the MC that we were discussing. I'm telling you, Ken, I had such a great time. It was so fun. I even joked in my remarks about being one of the only people alive to have interviewed personally the first and the last presidents of the United States, with you and then, of course, President Trump. But Ken, the story that you tell about Washington, and I would imagine there are numerous stories you could tell about Washington and about his role in, obviously, the revolution and leading the colonial army to victory. And then, of course, becoming the president. There are countless, but you focus, and you did in this particular event, specifically on the crossing of the Delaware. And you talk about what led up to that decision. You talk about how it was going to have to be done, the extraordinary obstacles in getting it done, and then, of course, what followed. So I'm going to get out of the way here for a little while. I'm going to give you the floor, and I want you to go back into character as General George Washington, as you did on the night that I first saw you back. I want to say it was around June 5th or somewhere. No, it was earlier than that, wasn't it? Because it wasn't right before D-Day. But I want you to go back into that character and share with this audience what you shared with that audience that night about the extraordinary obstacles and, again, the fortitude that you and the boys that marched with you showed in extraordinary battles. So I'm going to get out of the way and let you take it away.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, on July the 4th, 1776, 56 men gathered together in Philadelphia. They signed a document of a separation between us and King George of England. And those 56 men that signed that declaration, the last paragraph, if you know the Declaration of Independence, with a firm reliance upon the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And that's exactly what those 56 men was going to have to do. And that's another story. But I knew that we had decisions to make. And the number one decision I had to make as the Supreme Commander of the Continental Army was to protect and hold on to New York City. New York City was not the largest city at that time, but it was a very important city, as you well know, for shipping. Well, unfortunately, I only had close to 18,000. I never really knew exactly how many men I had in my army at that time. but it was around 18,000 men, or should I say young boys, because the average age of my Continental Army at that time was 14, 13, 14, 15, 16 summers old. The average age of my officers, 17, 18, maybe 20 years old. We had very little supply of gunpowder except what we could obtain from Paul Revere, who had 2 saltpeter mines in Pennsylvania. We had at that point no artillery whatsoever. We had no Navy, not one warship. We had very few small arms except what the lads brought in from their hunting squirrels. And we were up against the most powerful nation on the planet, England. They were well supplied, well paid. They had the strongest Navy in the world. They had the best artillery in the world. They had the best gunpowder from Spain in the world. And we were going to take them on and defeat them in open combat. I had decisions to make. I knew, number one, we had to protect New York City at all costs. I did not know that my young lads could stand up against those English regular soldiers. Now, we know at that point, Lord Cornwallis and Lord Howe had come over from England with approximately 32,000 regular soldiers, fresh off the battlefields of Europe, well-fed, well-armed, strong, disciplined soldiers. Would my young lads of 13, 14, and 15 take them on in open combat? And of course, we know what happened. We lost the Battle of Manhattan. Then they pushed us back and we lost the Battle of Kip's Hill. Then they pushed us back and we lost the Battle of Harlem. We lost the Battle of Washington, Fort Washington. We were forced to cross the Hudson River. And at that time, those 18,000 young lads had been reduced to approximately 5,000. We had to place some type of barrier between us and the regular troops of King George. As we made our way across the Jerseys, which someday would be known as New Jersey, I realized that let's place our troops on the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware River, if we could make it. And we did. We crossed the Delaware River. We set up camp. We felt like we would be safe at least until January of 1777, because we knew that the river would freeze over. Once that happened, Lord Howe, Lord Cornwallis, would send the regular soldiers across that Delaware River, and they would destroy what was left of our army. Everything hinged on those young men, approximately 5,000 of them in the Continental Army. Well, one evening, General Henry Knox, who had a booming voice, he weighed over 300 pounds. He was my general of artillery. In fact, he was the one that brought most of the artillery from Fort Ticonderoga down for the Army. He said, General Washington, let's take a little trip down the Delaware River on the other side and see what those Hessian troops are doing at Trenton. Now, at that time, Lord Cornwallis and General Howe had set up a series of outposts or posts across the Jerseys. One of them was Trenton. Each one had probably a contingency of anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 German Hessian troops, as well as regular English troops. We traveled that night and we spied on them across the Delaware, watching them in their discipline and their movements. And General Knox looked at me and said, Washington, why don't we cross the Delaware River on Christmas Day? Now, we know that the Germans celebrate Christmas a little different than we colonials, and they just might be a little under the weather if we could catch them by surprise. And I said, well, General Knox, that's insane. There's no way we're going to cross the Delaware River on Christmas Day, march 9 miles on the Jersey side, all the way to Trenton, surround Trenton, and attack it without them knowing about it. And all they would have to do was set up their artillery along the Delaware River and blow us to kingdom come. But I'll think about it. And I did. We went back to camp. The next day, I called in all my officers from lieutenant, first, second lieutenant on up. I discussed it. All right, gentlemen, you can say whatever you want to say. Probably 99% of them shook their head and said, respectfully, General Washington, you've lost your mind. You're crazy. You cannot do it. And I said, well, gentlemen, we've got to do something because the future of our country depends on whether or not we get a victory that France or Spain will look upon and come in on our side. We need a victory, and all that we've had so far was defeats in New York, Manhattan, Harlem, Kips Bay, Washington, Fort Washington. We need a victory. We need to do something, and we don't have much time. So we discussed it. I gave the final order. We are going to cross the Delaware River on Christmas Day, 1776. We have 2 weeks to prepare. So we sent out parties up and down the Delaware. We gathered together all the Durham boats. Now, those Durham boats, they're strong. You know, they're 42 feet long, some of them 14 feet wide. They vary in dimensions. But they were used to carry iron ore, coal, and wood up and down the Delaware River. We need those Durham boats to haul our troops across and to haul the artillery and the horses needed. So for that next week, we sent parties up and down the Delaware River. They gathered together all the Durham boats they could find. They brought them down to McCorkey's Ferry. Now, there were 2 ferry boats there, wider than the Durham boats. We would use those to place our 18 pieces of artillery on the ferries, and then also the horses and the caissons. And the Durham boats we would use for our troops. Now we have a means to cross the Delaware River. Can we keep it a secret? I gathered together all the officers. The password for this whole expedition is going to be what? Liberty or death. Liberty or death. Everything hinges on that crossing on this night in 1776. Nobody really knew what was going on except the officers. 3 days before Christmas of 1776, I gathered together all the chaplains of each regiment. We had quite a few regiments. Some of them were pretty small. The chaplains, in many cases, were the only ones that could read and write. You have to understand. Most of my soldiers, the 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they could not read or write. And I gave them copies, and each one had a copy of the Declaration of Independence. And I gave the command that every chaplain of every regiment was to read the Declaration of Independence to my soldiers, every one of them. I wanted these young lads to know what they were going to die for, what they are fighting for. They still had no idea where they were going. 2 days before Christmas of 1776, I gave the order to supply each of our soldiers with rations, hardtack, 1 potato for 2 days. Each were given a certain amount of powder. Each were given a certain amount of lead ammunition. They still had no idea. On Christmas morning, 1776, all the regiments gathered. They were given the instructions. We were going to march down to McCorkey's Ferry, and there was another ferry that we were going to use side by side. Precisely at 3 o'clock on Christmas Day, we're going to cross the Delaware River. Now, Divine Providence doesn't really listen to me a lot. Up until that time, the weather was really good. It was in the low 40s, 42, 43, nice, sunny. And I prayed, and I had all my chaplains pray that morning for good weather. Here we go. We're talking about weather. Weather is everything when it comes to military maneuvers. As we started to gather at McCorkle's Ferry, they started to enter the Durham boats. The wind kicks up. It starts to rain. The rain eventually becomes sleet. The sleet eventually becomes snow. By 5 o'clock on Christmas Day, we're in a full-blown snowstorm. I can only look up and think, my divine providence never listens to me. If ever we needed good weather, it was out Christmas afternoon and Christmas evening. We could not go back. Many of my officers came to me and said, General Washington, our powder is wet. Our powder is wet. We have to abort. I very seldom would lose my temper, but I did that day. And I told my officers, you get out there with your soldiers and those regiments, and you cross with them, and you lead them. We need followers, and they're going to follow you. Do not let me down. Around 11 o'clock, Christmas Day, it was time for General Henry Knox and myself to cross. I cannot swim. General Knox cannot swim. First thing he does, he gets in the Durham boat. He goes over to the side of the boat. He looks over, and I said, General Knox, trim up the boat. That means get to the center of the boat quickly, or you're going to have a wet George Washington crossing the Delaware River. And I can only imagine someday somebody's going to paint a picture of George Washington standing up in that Durham boat. I'm going to be well placed in the bottom of the boat where it's safe and dry. Precisely at 1 o'clock on December the 26th, all my army, close to 5,000, safely crossed the Delaware River. We did not lose one man. We did not lose one horse. We did not lose one artillery piece. I gave my men about 1 hour to sleep. Some of them were so tired, they just fell right down into the snow. These are all young boys. They're strong, but they're tired. And some of them are scared, and they still have no idea what lays ahead for them. Precisely at 2 o'clock on December the 26th, 1776, we started marching toward Trenton. I can only keep praying to divine providence that we're not discovered. There were a lot of Tories in the area. Now you understand, not everybody was for the American Revolution. A good percentage of the colonials wanted to stay with Great Britain. We called them Tories. And they would rat on us in a minute to let the British and the Hessians know we're coming. We started to march. At that point, most of my men did not have shoes. They did not have coats. Some did not have hats. Nobody complained. Not one of those boys complained. And they continued marching and marching and marching in that full-blown snowstorm. 1 mile outside of Trenton, I divided my army. Crazy, isn't it? I divided my army in two. The left flank and the right flank. General Henry Knox was to place his artillery on the hill overlooking King Street, which of course would be Main Street going down Trenton. I gave the command precisely at 0800 hours on December the 26th, 1776, we were going to attack. And we did. The battle lasted less than 45, maybe 50 minutes. We killed 27 of them. We captured 900 Hessian troops. 300 escaped with some of the British regular troops. But get this, as I sat down in the blacksmith shop, as my officers came in to review the battle and give me the casualty list, because I realized we could not afford to lose one man or one cannon. We couldn't do it. Here they come in. General Washington, no KIA. What? No KIA. We did not lose one man in that battle. No wounded. Now, later on, we lost 2 with frostbite about a week later. We captured all, are you ready for this? We captured all their supplies. We captured all their artillery pieces, really nice brass 32 pounders. We captured all their horses, all their saddles, all their tents, all their small arms, and we captured all their regimental flags. No army wants to give up their flags. And I kind of sat back and I enjoyed watching my men, and I did not say anything, to remove whatever parcel of clothing they wanted off of the Hessian troops. And it really did me good to see some of those Hessian troops marching down, being captured in their skivvies, and in some cases in their birthday suits. Our troops enjoyed some really warm clothes finally. It was a gigantic Christmas present that divine providence gave the United States. And I'll tell you why. Not only was that our first victory, but it brought France deciding to come in on our side. And they had an army and they had a navy that could equal the navy of Great Britain. And there you have it.
Well, General, the telling of the tale for the second time now, it's even more interesting because you fixate on a few other details. And the one that really grabbed me at that Oregon event there, the Visions for Ohio event, was about the equipment and the clothes. I kind of was smiling as you were talking about one of the things that warmed your heart was seeing them come out finally with all of the articles of clothing they were missing to stay warm in the brutality of the winter, and let the the naked Brits actually be the ones who had to endure the elements in such ways. But the idea that these young, what really hit me was when you said, I think 13 was youngest, 13 through 16-year-olds. These are kids. These are not men. And you can call them soldiers, you can do it, but they're kids. And maybe kids were different to that, in that time and in that era than they are today. I cannot imagine an army of 13 through 16-year-old American kids being able to step up and fight the most powerful military in the world today, be that Russia or China or whomever it might be. But these kids won that decisive battle, made that historic journey across the river, then the march, then with rags on their feet because they didn't have shoes.
Right. That's right.
You tell young kids that today, they probably wouldn't believe you, Ken or General. They wouldn't believe you a bit.
No. And I don't think the young people today could do that. I call it the dumbing down of America and history, the dumbing down of morals, the dumbing down of the family. In all the years of my teaching experience, I've seen so many changes come in to the educational of academia that I don't know whether I just don't think they could. That was a different breed. These young men, they knew what they had to do. There wasn't a coward among them. Those young men that stormed the beaches of Normandy, they were 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. They were young.
Yeah.
They were not cowards. They knew exactly when they hit that beach. There was one town in Virginia. I think you know what that town is. They lost 18 men in less than 5 minutes. 18 men before they even left the landing, mowed down with machine gun. These were exceptional men, exceptional people.
And why were they kids? Why were their fathers not part of that, army? Why were they not part of that regiment? Where were the 25-year-old dads or the 30-year-old dads with their 13-year-old kids, going out to fight these wars?
We were about 90%, maybe 95% agriculture, and farming was extremely important in colonial America. and many of the fathers, we did have some older men in the Continental Army, but for the most part, the fathers, grandfathers stayed home, planted the spring crops, harvested the fall crops, took care of the cows, the cattle, and that's the basic reason they were home farming.
So these young boys that were sent off to war, you talk about them being a different breed, a different cut than today's kids. And, it's kind of easy for us, your generation, I think I'm a generation behind you. The millennials are behind me, and then then you get to the Gen Zers, and it's kind of easy for us to make fun of the soft generation. But I'll tell you what, I'm being honest. I was 13 years old in 1981-ish. I couldn't have done it either. I don't like to think of myself or my generation as soft, but I couldn't imagine myself at 13 grabbing a rifle or a musket if I could. No artillery, no shoes, like you said, no coats and so forth. Let tear across the river, and march for 9 miles in the snow with rags on my frostbitten feet to get there, and then try to battle, some of the most fearsome fighters in the world. I couldn't have done it either. I don't understand. I don't know if we can at all process what was in the hearts and maybe the spirits of those young men. I don't think we can get it.
They had fire in their belly for freedom and liberty. A lot of our young people today, not all of them, but I've been in education my whole life. I've taught thousands of students. There's something missing. And I think the halls of academia have a lot to do with that. Today, how young people feel about America, what they think about America, and I hear this all the time. We're racist. We're this, we're that, and we're not, and we're not aggressive. We could have taken over the whole world after World War II, but we didn't. We helped rebuild Germany. We helped rebuild Japan. We helped rebuild Russia. We were right there with the Monroe Doctrine and the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. Young people back then had fire in their belly, their thoughts of freedom and what they felt about colonial America. And America is just a lot different than what a lot of young people feel today. Not all. You have your Charlie Kirk and his following. And I see you have a picture of Charlie Kirk behind you, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Great man. There he is, a great man. And he had a following. And their idea of America is a lot different than what I come across many times in academia. And I got out of public education. I teach in a private school now, but I could not continue teaching in the environment of public education.
The fact that you've been doing it since '73 speaks volumes about your ability to tolerate the change and to change as much as you had to, because I taught just for 6 years. I taught starting in 90. Yeah. And I was out by 96. And I had some old educators in my school who said to me, if you can't see yourself doing this for 30 years, based on what you're seeing now as the trend, and this is again the early 90s, get out now. Because he said, the one particular science teacher, I was an English teacher, and the science teacher I worked with across the hall, great man. It's too late for me. I'm 25 in. I've got 5 more to go before I can get out of here. He said, but you're just getting started. You see the way it's trending. And I did. You talk about academia. You talk about teachers' unions. You talk about parents not reining in their kids. You talk about kids coming to school to cause problems for the good kids and for the teachers and so forth. Damned if he wasn't right, because I can tell you right now, I would probably be around, I don't know what the math is here, but I might have been retired by now. I could not have tolerated what academia has become, and particularly in the public schools. I would have gotten fired or arrested with the way I would have had to deal with some of those kids when you weren't allowed to discipline kids anymore. And you were responsible for, presenting all of this woke nonsense. And I'm sorry to call it that, such a simplified term, Ken, but I knew I couldn't do it. My friend was right. And I started a broadcasting career after that. And I guess it all worked out for the better, but yeah, I couldn't agree. Oh, I don't know where that just came from, but holy goodness, that was a loud shrieking whistle. So Ken Hammontree, I want to say thank you for the living history you just brought to this conversation and to this audience. I'm going to go back, and I would advise everybody, let me bring the home screen back up on the page again if I can. I've got to close this down here a little bit in order to be able to bring that back. Yeah, here we go. Let's I got to do all of this myself because I don't have a producer here working behind me right now. So I've got to kind of do this on my own. But I want everybody to see it, Ken, and remind everybody what it looks like, because I want them to watch some of the videos of your performances of some of the other characters there. Obviously, that's the Washington one, but where this is the one I want to share now. Back to the homepage here, and I think this is okay. This is it. Just got to go back to the number one page there. But, we talked about, there you are, Mozart. We talked about Johnny Appleseed, Patton, Martin Luther, Eisenhower, Oscar Schindler, which would be fascinating. I have no doubt whatsoever. All of the other characters that you have portrayed, obviously the Washington, I'd love to see Jefferson. I'd love to see some of your work with Franklin and so many more, but people can really, really get a great feel for this at that website. You see it on the screen right now. It's ashlandcountypictures.com, ashlandcountypictures.com. And there's Ken Hammontree has his own link. I don't know if you can see that part up in the upper corner there. But if you just type Ken Hammontree's name in the search bar up there, you can pull up all of these things and really experience some of this living history that Ken is doing for his students, doing in speeches all around the country. 40 times he's doing Washington here this summer, of course, because of the 250th celebration of freedom. And Ken, I'm honored that you were here, and I really appreciate what you're doing. God bless you for sticking in education as long as you have. And thanks for continuing to educate people all over this country.
God bless America. God bless our veterans.
Amen to both of those things. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, there you go. That's Ken Hammontree, and I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. When you see him in the full Washington uniform, the Washington regalia, it's even better. Obviously, that's why I tried to just give you a little bit of the still photos and then some of the silent video just to kind of get an idea. But it was really quite an extraordinary thing to see. All right, I want to say thanks to everybody who's been hanging in on the chat. Everybody there, I can't really read you right now because we are on pre-record, obviously, but everybody that's here during this live stream, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you once again, if you liked what you saw with my interview with Kelley Williams-Bolar, give me that thumbs up. If you like what you just saw and heard from Ken Hammontree, give me that thumbs up. Leave some comments in the comment section. Make sure you hit that bell for notifications as well. And if you are so inclined to try to keep supporting what we do here, go ahead and drop something, hit that little $sign in the bottom of the comment section there and give us a tip, or think about actually becoming a subscriber and a sponsor. A $10 a month sponsorship from enough people will carry me through to be able to do this in the long term and provide you with what I hope is valuable content for yourself as well. So I want to say again, thanks to you for being a part of it. Don't forget the newsletter as well, the Sunday morning briefing, as always. And I'll take you out here with just a little bit of music. Thank you for watching and being a part of the events today. Thanks again to Ken Hammontree and to Kelley Williams-Bolar for their conversations. Sunday morning, 6 a.m., you will see the Sunday morning briefing coming your way. If you have an email inbox, just go ahead and scan that code that you see right there. Scan that QR code and put in your first name and just put in the email address, and you'll get that Sunday morning briefing and be up to speed with all of us. And then, of course, Monday, we are live in Columbus, and I'm looking forward to that. We're going to try to live stream that event if we can. But even if we can't, I promise you we will upload the entire thing to this channel for America 250 in Columbus. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Be well. As I always like to say, be well, be safe, and stay free. See you next time. Bye-bye.